Hello, everyone, and welcome to CID's webinar today, Become a Garage Insurance Pro. My name is Anae Agostini. I'm CEO of CID Insurance Programs, and it's great to have you here today. I want to introduce our webinar instructor, Teresa Cochran. She's our garage underwriter, so she's going to be your expert for the day. And I want to also introduce Jacob Cole, who's our marketing coordinator and makes everything run smoothly behind the scenes. So without further ado, let's get started. Logistics today. Of course, you guys are so used to webinars now. You will be on mute but able to hear, but not speak. But your voice is important, so let's pose those questions in our chat room at any time throughout the webinar, and really those questions are important to us. So, and there is no question that is not important to ask. So please do put them in the chat room, and we'll stop and answer them throughout the webinar. So let's talk about objectives. Today, we're going to be identifying the important garage risk exposures, which if you don't write garage, that's going to be really important to have some information on. Second, we're going to learn about the different garage classes of business, which you really need to understand in order to, if you're going to start to write any of these garage classes. And last, you want to understand the coverages needed for each type of the garage risk that we're going to talk about today. So your instructor today is Teresa. Teresa, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Teresa Cochran, the garage underwriter here at CID. So this slide is just showing a list of our top garage risks that I see across my desk all day, every day. And from this list, I have chosen 3 classes to focus on today. And we are going to be starting on repair shop. So when you receive a call requesting a quote, or maybe you're in the field meeting with a repair shop owner, these are some of the questions that you should be asking to get a good understanding of their business. So this one's a pretty basic one. The top bullet point here: how many years in business? Do they have they had any coverage? What's their insurance history? And have they had any losses? These questions are going to help me to determine what markets I have available and if any credits are on the table for me to apply while quoting the risk. What types of vehicles are they working on? And what types of repair work are they offering? The garage application does a great job of breaking down the different repair classes. So that garage app is a great tool to have on hand while you're gathering information with your clients. You should also be asking, are all the repairs done at the garage location, or are they performing any mobile repairs? Any pickup or delivery of customer autos? These are all potential driving exposures that we need to identify, and we can also accommodate, no problem. Now, how are the autos kept overnight? Are all the autos kept inside of a building, in a fenced lot, or an open lot? Are they parked on the street? These answers will determine what type of Garagekeepers coverage we can offer and theft eligibility. And lastly, how many owners do they have? This includes inactive owners as well. And how many part-time and full-time employees are there? And of course, what type of coverages are they looking for? So please keep in mind that garage liability is rated on the number of owners, inactive and active, and full-time and part-time employees. So it is very important to obtain this information when you're meeting with your clients. The first example I have is a general automotive repair risk. Working on private passenger vehicles, we're going to say that they have 1 owner and 3 full-time employees. They've been in business, but with no prior coverage. And they aren't doing any pickup or delivery. And all work is done at their garage. So since I've been in business with no prior coverage, I would probably go a step further with my questioning to find out why they are looking for coverage. Did they possibly suffer a loss? Um, maybe they just haven't been able to afford insurance, or they have a new landlord that is requiring them to get coverage in place. So the answer will definitely help you find out what's driving them to get a policy and how price sensitive they may be. So let's say this repair shop owner had mistakenly put a dent in a customer's vehicle. And since he had no coverage, he had to pay to cover the expense to get the vehicle fixed. So now he's kind of shopping around to see if he can get coverage in place in case anything like this were to happen again. So, this definitely happens, and this sounds like your typical repair shop. So recommending garage liability, Garagekeepers Coverage, and maybe some property coverage as well, like business personal property and business income would be great options to discuss with the client. But it does depend on how price sensitive they're going to be. So there are two Garagekeepers coverages available. You have the legal liability and direct primary, which are defined on this slide, and you will be getting a copy of this webinar as well, so you can read through the definitions on your own time, and feel free to reach out with any questions. But each carrier does have their own guidelines when it comes to which coverage can be offered. So here we go back to the lot protection. It is important to ask what their lot protection is, so that on my end, I can determine what they're eligible for. And again, the law protection question is asked for on the Garage app. So taking the Garage app with you when you're meeting with your client is a great way to gather the information needed. The next example we have is definitely not your standard repair shop. This is a mobile repair business working on heavy trucks. We definitely see these a lot. So the owner has many years of experience in the field and recently decided to go out on his own and start his own business. The owner will only have one part-time employee since he's just starting out, and all work will be done at the customer's location, so there's no pickup or delivery exposure. And the owner is saying that he needs garage liability, but is not sure what other coverages he may need. So being the seasoned garage expert that you are, you will all recommend Garagekeepers Coverage, since you will have customer vehicles in his care, custody, and control. And he may also need, commercial liability to cover his commercial vehicle that he's using to drive from job site to job site. And inland marine coverage may also be a great option to discuss with the client in order to cover the tools and equipment that he's bringing with himself to these different job sites. And the last case study I'm going to review is a used auto dealership. The questions that we had gone through on the repair shop, there's going to be some similarity between those questions and these questions here. So again, how many years in business? Do they have coverage? Have they had any losses? But now we're going to be looking at, what types of autos are being sold and to whom. For example, are they selling motorcycles, private passenger vehicles, light pickup trucks, contractors' equipment? Are they selling to the general public like you and I, or to other dealerships? If they are selling to other dealerships, they are going to be labeled as a wholesale auto dealer. These next 2 points are especially important because this is how I rate for the risk. We need a complete list of all owners, employees, and drivers. And we need to know who is a furnace driver and how many dealer plates they have. Please note that a furnace driver is someone that drives vehicles off of the lot for personal use. Next, we have lot protection, key controls, and finding out what coverages they are looking for. So we previously touched on lot protection, but we haven't talked about key controls. the carrier wants to make sure that the keys for all the for sale vehicles are locked in a secure location. So this is another question that's also asked on a garage application. So in this last example, the client is a used auto dealership that is selling to the general public. And here you can see we have a nice split out of the employees and their job duties, which is very helpful for me on the rating side. The owner's spouse is a furnished driver, and even though she is not active in the business, it is important to list her on the garage application so we can account for her driving exposure. If someone is driving those vehicles, we need to make sure they're named on the policy, because if anything happens when they're driving that vehicle, then there's not going to be any coverage in place if they're not listed on the policy. In this case, the dealership owns the building. They've had 2 years of prior coverage, and they're in need of several different types of coverages here. Let's see, they need garage liability, dealer's physical damage, which will cover the vehicles that are for sale on the lot. They need Garagekeepers, dealer's E&O, false pretense, coverage, building, and business personal property. You may be asking, why is a dealership wanting Garagekeepers coverage? They would need this. A lot of dealerships like to add on this coverage in case they test drive a customer's vehicle for a trade-in. This next slide is going to go over all the auto dealers' E&O coverage options. The top 3 bullet points are the most common E&O coverages selected because most of these dealerships don't have an insurance agent employed. So typically just those first 3 are going to be selected on the Garage app as coverages that they want on the policy. And again, Jacob will be sending you a copy of this webinar, so feel free to read through the definitions and contact me with any questions. So false pretense is a coverage that they had wanted. If you haven't heard of this coverage before, this is when someone made your client part ways with a vehicle by ways of trickery or scheme. We have had, in the past, we had an insured that received a fraudulent money order at time of purchase. The insured obviously had no idea the money order was fake until the bank declined it. And by that time, the buyer was long gone. So it is an inexpensive coverage, usually around $75 or less. So it's definitely worth adding on or at least discussing with your client. And once we are able to bind coverage on a garage risk, an inspection may be ordered, which brings us to loss control. Here are a list of the most common loss control items we see. Definitely worth going over with your clients. A lot of slip and fall hazards due to maybe cracks in the pavement, in the parking lot, oil spills, fire extinguishers that need to be serviced and tagged. Maybe they don't have any smoke detectors installed. And another big one we see are the soiled rags. Those need to be disposed of in metal containers. So it's kind of a nice little checklist you can, easily go over with your client, at time of bind. And if you have any questions on these, feel free to pose a question in the chat.
So there is a question about the application, like how filling it out. What's important to know about it. Like, what are the important pieces of information that you need?
Yes, absolutely. We previously did a webinar going through the different sections of the garage application. So that can be found on our website, and I believe it's under the educational tools section of our company website, which is CIDinsurance.com.
Great.
There's
also a question relative to maybe defining garage liability and garage keepers coverage. Maybe, in your own words, being able to, like, giving some examples so they have a better
Yeah.
understanding.
So in the garage world, garage liability is basically general liability for a garage risk. So you're going to get all the coverages you would get on a normal general liability policy, but we call it garage liability because it pertains to your auto repair and your auto dealership risk. And the garage keepers is a coverage that you need when you have a customer's vehicle, a vehicle that you don't own, in your care, custody, and control.
Excellent.
Any other questions? Okay. So from the takeaway. Oh, I'm sorry, Anae. Did you want me to?
Go ahead. No, go ahead,
Okay,
Teresa. Sorry.
I'm sorry. So from today's webinar, I hope you're able to understand kind of what the types of different garage exposures there are, how they need to be insured, what coverages you should be looking for and recommending to your clients so that they are properly insured. And definitely check out the garage application, look through different questions, just get familiar with it, so that you are educated and making sure to gather the information needed in order to get a quick quote from us.
I think we have a question, Teresa.
Okay.
Would you? Oh, wait. Sorry. I think we have it. This is for the one. Would a garage liability satisfy requirements of a landlord in lieu of a CGL?
Yeah, absolutely. And if they're price sensitive, there's also a premises only liability policy that they can get enforced, which would save them a lot of money. But it is a premises only type of policy. But yes, garage liability or a premises only policy should definitely satisfy the landlord's lease agreement.
Okay, and we have another question. Would you want garage keepers for someone like a detailer?
Yeah, absolutely. Just because they are taking possession of a customer's vehicle, and whether or not they purchase it is something else, because they do have to pay for it and they could be price sensitive. So they should at least have that garage liability. But it is worth adding on maybe just $50K in garage keepers coverage, just on legal liability, so that will save them a little bit more money rather than going for a direct primary type of coverage. But yeah, it would be worth trying to convince them to get it, just in case something were to happen when they're cleaning that vehicle. Maybe they use a polish or something that shouldn't be used on that type of vehicle, and it tarnishes it.
Thank you. So one more question, and I think this one would be a really good one. I think you deal with this all the time, where they buy the garage liability but not the garage keepers. So the question is, so if they are an auto repair shop, would we recommend them to also obtain garage keepers insurance?
100%. Absolutely. Absolutely. If they're not going to take the garage keepers and they're only going to do the garage liability, then they're only insuring themselves for 20% of their exposure. They're all. Go ahead, Anae. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think you brought that up in your first case study relative to someone that had a claim that they paid out of pocket for and was trying to obtain the coverage.
Correct. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. You're working on customer vehicles all day. They're in your possession all day, so it would definitely be smart to have coverage for those vehicles while they're in your care.
Thank you, Teresa. Do we have any other questions? Looks like there is. Is there a separate towing application if the insured also has a towing exposure?
So towing gets tricky. Some carriers want nothing to do with towing. Some are okay if they're towing. If you're an auto repair shop, your customer needs to be towed to your repair shop, then that's okay. we can definitely accommodate for that. And you would want to add on the on-hook coverage if you're looking to cover that customer's vehicle while you are towing it back to your repair shop. And there is not a separate towing application. There are towing questions in the Garage app.
Excellent. Are there any other questions? Please type them in the chat, and we'll answer them. If so, I want to. Okay, we have one more. Is DOL required to have false pretense?
No, false pretense is just an option. Oh, yes. You would definitely need to have some dealer's physical damage. Well, no, actually, no. No, you can definitely just get the false pretense, but that's a little rare. Usually when you're a dealership, you're going to have dealer's physical damage coverage. But you know, it is not required to have. You don't have to do. You do not have to have the dealer's physical damage to add on false pretense.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? Please type them in. So we have a lot of carriers that represent Garage. Teresa has been underwriting Garage for many years, so she's very, very good at it. So we are a great source for any kind, all types of Garage, any type of Garage exposure that you have. So please submit your applications today. If you haven't visited our website, we have lots of tools. It's so broker friendly, lots of broker tools from marketing to templates, even proposal templates that you can make your own. And if you have any questions, like Teresa's really responsive, you can reach her at her email or her phone number. We answer our phone and we answer our emails. We will have a survey at the end of this webinar. That's a really great way for us to get feedback and do a better job for you. So please feel free to reach out with any questions to Teresa. And I want to thank you for joining us today.